This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper, Goren, Holm, or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever. And thank you to Blockchain Radio for sharing all of these. You can find these there afterwards, and we always have it available on our YouTube channel, usually by the next day. But, you know, Adam can't even make it on the chat, so who knows if he'll publish it on time. Total slacker, that guy. Last week, I left him hanging.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Call me out like that. Okay,
Oh,
call me out like that.
I was just about to say that last week I left you hanging. So
I see how the dynamic's working now. Okay. How's it going, everyone? Sorry, I was having issues with Remo.
Everyone,
hello.
That's part of
cool.
the picture. So thank you everyone for joining us. Would love to let's get this party started. Tons of awesome. Sorry, I'm going through. Yeah. Numbers up, going fast. Yeah. Let's see. Indianapolis, Washington, D.C., NYC with a Negroni. Oh, yeah. Let us know what you're drinking, too. Negronis are disgusting. Who drinks that stuff? My brother drinks them. That's why I know. Actually, Tyler, we were talking about Brooklyn. My cousin that lives in Brooklyn likes to drink that main ingredient for Negroni. Campari, yeah, it's so gross. It smells like diesel, like it tastes like diesel smells.
Yeah.
You do? Yeah, you're from Brooklyn. You're supposed to like the weird stuff. Cool. Let's go through. I'd like to start with Nelly, and we'll work our way. I would love to hear. Tell us about yourself, just like a one-liner. Tell us where you are in the world, and let's get started. You're muted.
Check the bottom bar. If it's not working, try a quick refresh, and it should work afterwards. We could start with Kevin. Kevin, you want to give us the rundown, who you are, what you do, how long you've been in the space for, and then we'll take it to Tyler.
What do you mean by this space?
How long have you been with Tezos, I guess, Tezos advocate, working in blockchain and whatnot?
We just got to be like around it.
Okay.
So my name is Kevin Mehrabi. I'm working on Tezos DeFi project. My main project is USD Tez right now, to which Vishakh, who just dropped off a second, these and Cryptonomic are working on me with that. Also Tezos Finance, which will be a compound-like Tezos lending and borrowing platform. And I've been working on Tezos stuff, projects, whether it was technological or community-based, since 2018, participated in the crowd sale. Before that, I kind of fell in love with Tezos once I realized, oh, okay, this is what answers all of my hesitations about getting behind any one blockchain project or another. The unity aspect really hit me hard, and with that, on-chain governance and the economics, it all just kind of fell together and made sense. Yeah, that's me. Nelly.
Very cool. Thank you. Go ahead, Nelly.
Okay. So Nelly, I'm based in Cameroon in Africa. It's a kind of a tiny country in Central Africa. I'm leading the Tezos West Africa Foundation, so trying to raise awareness around blockchain and specifically Tezos in like the 14 to 16 countries that compose West and Central Africa. I'm also the co-founder of Ejara, who aims to democratize investments in the region, in Francophone Africa, starting with access to crypto in a secure way, so non-custodial wallets. And so before that, basically, I'm a computer science engineer, and I spent my whole career first developing and then starting teams, like large teams in corporate environments that use technology to solve problems for companies and provide value. So for me, technology does only make sense if it solves a value, if it solves some problems that people have or creates additional value for a company or a society.
Very cool. Thank you. And Tyler?
Hi, I'm Tyler. I'm from Brooklyn. I've been working on Tezos full-time for 3 years. I'm the founder of camlCase. We're building a couple different products for Tezos. One is a mobile wallet called Magma that we released about 6 or 7 weeks ago. The other is a decentralized exchange called Dexter, which we will be launching in a couple weeks.
Very cool. And Vishakh is having some technical trouble. He'll join us from another device in just a second. We can either wait for him or we can dive right into it alone.
I say we dive right in.
Let's do it.
Vishakh will be here soon. I've asked this on Twitter, but there's the Tezos obsession with tacos and stuff like that. Kevin started to explain. I think there is, at least. A lot of the Tezos community, I see tacos all over the place. So what's Kevin started to explain it in the Twitter thread, but
yeah. So the way it was explained to me was that it's you would get tacos back in the day. So people just started calling it tacos jokingly. Time people started their bakers and had to give them names, they would sometimes choose tacos or take some kind of a taco theme in honor of that or as that inside joke. But all the new entrants had no idea what they're talking about because that doesn't happen anymore when you type in Tezos. So, yeah.
It's Tezos Tuesday Taco Night on Blockchain and Booze.
You know, actually, I'm not new, but I didn't know about this taco story. I always thought it dated back to like 1 year and a half ago at the Holm in New York, because I heard a lot of people talking about being served the best tacos ever, but I didn't know it dated even, earlier than that. So I still have to learn about that story. And I've also participated in the cross sale, so I don't know. Also learning stuff about Tezos here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, when we get back to real LA Blockchain Summit, when quarantine is all over and we can all do that fun stuff, we're going to have some kind of Tezos taco event in Los Angeles, because I don't know if there's any place that has better tacos in the world. So feel like we
love it. We'll do it.
Let's see, has Vishakh made it? It was really funny, actually. Somebody commented asking if he's in a nuclear lab, because for a minute he had like Goren going.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we can kind of kick it off and Vishakh can kind of join into the conversation and then introduce himself later on. So I stumbled upon this Reddit thread about Tezos and DeFi. So Kevin, maybe you could just start off, because the topic is all about Tezos, all about DeFi. Maybe you can start telling us what's the current state of DeFi and Tezos. Are we seeing similar projects that are being built on the Ethereum blockchain also being built on Tezos? Are there different components, different moving pieces? Maybe you can kind of give us the rundown.
First of all, Vishakh, I think we can hear you typing, so I think your audio is working. I think because he messaged me on Signal, he's saying that it's getting like he's having trouble on different devices with it, so it's taking his time. But yeah, so I wanted to get that out just so it didn't hang over my head. But
yeah, and Vishakh, if you do hear us, try another browser, because this system is a little weird. Sometimes switching browsers up works. Somebody just said IE8 not supported. Okay.
Okay. So I let him know that. Good. All right. So
Cool.
Tezos DeFi. So far, like DeFi has been pretty synonymous with Ethereum DeFi, but really Ethereum was just the first, and they had the most ability to get a head start. And I think if nothing else, I mean that shows the success of DeFi in general, and Ethereum DeFi, more specifically, another way of saying it. It's approaching $10 billion in, according to DeFi Pulse, about 7.6 billion last I checked today. But it's really up there. And for people who are kind of joining the DeFi train of news or whatever relatively recently, that's steep. That's a really steep rise. A few months ago, like the fact that we were in the billions was like, wow, oh my God, that's amazing. Toward the beginning of the year, were we even at 100 million? I don't think so. I think we were kind of dipping below that. And then all of these DEXs, like Uniswap and whatnot, the volume was so low that they weren't really making the news coverage. It was kind of seen in the same pool of the old DEXs, the ones that are, like that we remember from 2017, 2018. But the new form of them, the automated market making, things like what Tyler's building with Dexter, like these really started to pick up traction over the last several months too. And so now the point where they're still relatively small, but a significant volume-wise and significant market cap-wise in terms of interacting with the trades of these assets. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is why this is all happening now. To really have any kind of a DeFi ecosystem, you need three main things. I could say a bunch of things, but it's three main distinct things that make a DeFi ecosystem. You need the wallets that are going to support these different token assets. You need a marketplace for which these assets can be traded or supplied, kind of, you can interact with them in a way for financial desires or participation desires, governance desires, whatever that is. And of course, you need the tokens themselves. You need little things, objects that people can mess with, play with, utilize, whatever it needs to be. I've been telling everybody to watch this High Score, this docu-series on Netflix. It's only 3 episodes long, but it's just like, I've been telling everybody, like family, business people, just like you should watch it. It's a really great analogy. Just how the console wars for video games worked. It feels a lot like that. It doesn't have to be a war. It's just like a big space that's growing very rapidly, and there's a lot more to come. So before you could build any of those 3 things, you needed to have a token standard. And once the token standard was announced a little over a year ago, you had these announcements. Tyler made one of those for Dexter, the Uniswap-like exchange to come out. That was to be built. My announcement came out about USD Tez stablecoin. Other coin announcements came out, and of course, all of these wallets building their interaction standards and support for them. Vishakh has one of the major wallets out there for Tezos right now. I mean, I don't know what the statistic is. Some large share of Tezos wallet participants are Galleon users, Galleon by Cryptonomic. And Beacon is the other key ingredient, because that often it's not the end thing you necessarily interact with, but it's a great technology which came from air gap. And that's what to allow the MetaMask-like capabilities where your wallet can participate with these marketplaces. So now we have everything all together. We're just waiting, I think, for that last ingredient is Dexter to launch, and then it'll be a very we'll see where that spark takes us, but that's what you need to have: the base pools, liquidity pools, and pool participation pools, I guess. And it's just I think a ramp up of yields generating mechanisms, and then derivatives off of those, lending aspects and borrowing aspects. It all kind of that's all the byproduct of an initial spark within one of these blockchain DeFi economies. So. A lot of it will spill over from Ethereum, I think, but also just the overall space is getting very large. So it'll be exciting to see how that starts to blossom and grow from there.
Cool. And now that we have Vishakh here, maybe Vishakh, can you hear us? Not exactly.
Hear you.
It's all good.
Well, he's still communicating.
Use the sign language,
So we can hear.
Just get rid of your headphones the way I did it, because even for the headphones wasn't working.
Yeah, just use your speakers maybe. Speakers.
Yeah.
No, maybe try a hard refresh now that you disconnected your headphones.
Yeah.
Refresh one more time. We'll come back. We'll get it.
Techniques, Mike. Yeah.
So Tyler, I have a question for you. So when you're creating a DEX, okay, and realizing how much impact and value Uniswap has created on Ethereum, right? When you're building your DEX, I don't want to compare and contrast because I know Tezos is its own monster, right? So I don't think it's fair exactly to pin it one for one, but I think there's a lot of inspiration that comes with how Uniswap and how all these other DEXs operate on Ethereum. When you're building your DEX, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to building a DEX and replicating maybe the traction that other DEXs on Ethereum have gotten, and the challenges that you faced with building this type of this tool, this platform for the Tezos community?
Yeah, there were two main challenges when building a DEX on Tezos, where Dexter is very similar to Uniswap, but Tezos is obviously very different from Ethereum. And we're building on a platform that it was very new. We started building Dexter a year ago. At that time, Tezos had only launched a year before. So the smart contract language we're building with was immature at that point. The higher level languages that compiled down to Michelson were not fully developed. So it was a challenge to get started writing smart contracts. That has improved a lot over the past year. So as we've developed, and we were part of that, being one of the developing one of the first complicated smart contracts on Tezos. We're like, here's what needs to be done. Here's how this smart contract language could develop to help developers write more efficiently. So that was one thing. The other is Tezos is proof of stake. And so these liquidity pools that are common, you have many different liquidity providers providing liquidity to a single smart contract. Where does that smart contract get delegated in a proof of stake environment? So that's a unique challenge that Uniswap didn't have to face. And it's actually it's a more difficult problem.
Can you kind of dumb down that problem for people like me? So when you say, okay, so the current way it works on Tezos is people stake both sides, right? So, or they put in Ethereum on one side and USDC on the other to be a part of the liquidity pool. All that liquidity or all that lives in that smart contract. So on Tezos, that has to be then delegated to one of the bakers, or what do you mean by that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's a single smart contract that can only be delegated to one baker. And how is that decision made, in a decentralized way? And it was. Is that
essentially giving all fees created from that one contract and all sort of, all of the transactions that occur in that one contract and the fees that are accrued by that will be delegated to one baker? Is there more to it? I'm trying to understand just a little more.
Yeah, just the way proof of stake works. You want to delegate your funds to a baker. You can bake yourself, or you can delegate to a baker, right? And there's often these bakers will share the rewards with those who delegate them to, with some split. Like say they keep 10% and then we'll send 90% of the rewards to those who delegate to them. So yeah, that's a challenge when you're dealing with a common liquidity pool, like one smart contract that is holding funds from many different participants.
And Nelly, I was hoping, so you just made the switch from Paris to Africa, right? You were telling me, and that's a big move, right? And you were telling me how there's so much opportunity in Africa when it comes to blockchain technology, specifically for the Tezos community. I think I remember one of our previous blockchain and booze, we had dove into the whole African ecosystem when it comes to adopting blockchain tech. Can you give us, from your perspective, what's happening right now in Africa that you had to make the switch from Paris all the way to over there with the passion and the pursuit of implementing Tezos within their economy, within their communities, within the society?
No, yeah, sure. Thank you for asking this question. Africa is kind of really a huge continent, right? So sometimes when we talk about Africa, we think about it as a sole country. But when it comes to blockchain adoption and awareness, I kind of separate kind of four Africas, like the South Africa that is led by South Africa is kind of in advance, like East Africa with Rwanda and Kenya. It's been like blockchain and crypto have been like the means of some kind of the gig economy to power the gig economy for like 3 years for now. And then you have the Anglophone West Africa led by Nigeria and Ghana that is also seeing like huge amounts of Bitcoin being traded. If you even look at the Google Trends, like the top countries where Bitcoin is looked for, it seems like I think 5 of them, like within the top 10, 5 of them are in Africa, and usually you find Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. When it comes to my geography of origin, Francophone Africa, the ones that were that was colonized by France, the one that share the same kind of local currency that is the CFA francs, because we have this illusion of a stable local fiat currency because it's pegged to the euro, I think the adoption has been slower. And one other reason is because the cultural differences between like having evolved from French colonialism to getting more exposed to this new tech that is that's come mostly from the US and other countries. So that has prevented Francophone Africa to catch up the speed. But one thing I think remained really clear to me since like I came upon like a blockchain and all the potential application in 2016 is it really could be like a game changer also for people in my geography. Like in 1994, we underwent like a devaluation decided by the French government. And we know it can happen again because we are not in charge of our monetary policy. I don't even know how a country can aspire and a whole region can aspire to get developed, to get kind of economic freedom if you don't own your monetary policy. And the second thing, like, and I think a lot of people are talking about it extensively about the remittance and so on. But let me come back to this DeFi. Although, I mean, we are not that sophisticated to go into the full-blown DeFi as we see the likes of Uniswap and everything. I think, for example, stable coins is a huge application that could be huge here in my region because suddenly the people can be exposed not only to the local systemic risk, but they can also kind of diversify their saving into a US peg coin, into like even the maker, even the USDTZ that Kevin has developed on Tezos. So those kind of prospects are really interesting for me. And the last thing I'm going to mention is why did I decide with this strong conviction that it was time to come back? I've been coming regularly to the continent and I've been meeting these young people and I've seen the passion, I've seen the talent, I've seen like the way they embrace new technology, the way they take it their own. And for example, one application that a 20-year-old kid came to me with was, oh, you know what, my parents own cattle in the north of Cameroon. And when you talk about this tokenized asset, how can I make sure? Because like buying a whole cow, it's like $45. And most people don't have that money. But if you can invest in a cow, after 2 years, 3 years, you can sell it for like $300. So how can I make sure to tokenize my cow so that we can maybe be 10 to buy it? And then we started brainstorming about it, like combining some kind of, tokenized asset and RFID so that you can still kind of verify where your car is at, which location in real time. So this is the kind of application that comes from Africa, and I feel like since for me technology must be linked to really the problems of the people, I couldn't fully develop it for the benefits of my continent if I didn't come back, because I will be so far from their local problems. So that's why I'm really excited to be there now.
It's amazing. I think there's so many little, specifics, so many things we could dive into there. One, I think the way DeFi is happening on Ethereum, or at least is being adopted at the moment with the tools currently available in the space, there are insights into potential opportunities like what you're talking about, but the current system currently will never support something like that. And there's going to have to be some major changes. Before we dive in, actually, I've got so many thoughts on that specifically. I was, signaling to Adele in the chat room, Dr. Adele Maziri. We've been chatting about some things that are very similar, so we should talk after the event. But Vishakh, you've joined us.
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Oh my God, what a relief. I tried 3 devices and 3 browsers on each device. I think the application just has taken a slight dislike to me, but it's okay. Now we're friends.
No, we're good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in the space, how long you've been involved for, and just, I guess, the general rundown.
Yeah, so I'm obviously Vishakh from Cryptonomic. Cryptonomic does a lot of DeFi actually in the financial industry over here in New York. But in Tezos, we've been present since the early days. We've built a lot of the foundational tooling, and now we're getting into Tezos DeFi thanks to our partnership with Kevin.
Awesome.
And, I work with everyone else on this panel. So, yeah, plenty of collaborations and efforts going on.
Cool. So where I was getting to after Nelly's description, Vishakh, did you just take a shot? That was awesome.
I deserve a shot.
I love it. That was great. Talking about the developing world, talking about DeFi, and I think one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, why all of us came to this space is probably because of the opportunity for crypto, for DeFi to level the playing field, create a borderless world, create a world that's not necessarily governed by a few people, but by giving real power to everyone. And I think everyone has their own angle on how they got to that feeling and why they're here, but we all have similar thoughts and feelings when it comes to that. And it's making me so happy right now. So Kevin, Tyler,
be happy too.
also Vishakh and Nelly, if we're going to look at DeFi as not this momentary blip of degens trying to farm yield and make as much money as they can in a certain small period of time, but really for the masses, right? Products that the masses can use. Even going to, a topic we had recently like NFTs, where I joked, I said if it costs $5 every time book with my friend when I was a kid, I would have never traded a comic book because we didn't have $5. So transaction fees can't be the way they are. The world that works, the world just doesn't work that way. It might work for us. We are a very privileged and lucky group of people to be goofing around like that, but not everyone. So how are we going to get to those next steps, right? And I know that Tezos is so early in that because we're just, Dexter is going to be launched soon. USD Tez is going to be, available or launched soon. It is available now, but it'll be launched soon in terms of with use cases. So how do you guys envision getting from now until the point where Nelly can implement these products in her community and allow, hopefully, that farmer to buy USD Tez on their phones using their local currency, or or maybe getting paid in USD Tez so they don't have to rely on their government money. You know, how do you guys see the trajectory happening, or what are the first steps? You know?
Yeah, I think it's in the end. No, Vishakh, you go ahead. I've talked too much.
All right, since I joined late, so I caught the tail of what Nelly was saying, and I completely agree. So I'm originally from India, and I empathize with a lot of what Nelly said. The problems, as far as adoption are concerned, are very similar, right? So if you take a country like India or Cameroon or what have you, all the necessary ingredients that were required to get DeFi up and running over here are pretty much the same over there in many ways, right? So getting a stable coin in local currency up and running. Right now, just because so many of us that are participating in the space, we're in the West, we're based in Western Europe or Japan or North America, we don't think about these other stable coins that might need to be built. And the other thing is just in terms of usability, right? UI UX was a long-term problem, and it's one of the things that's happened is as more and more people have started using these DeFi applications, the UI sort of incrementally improved as well. So there are some wallets that were not possible maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which are now possible. So these are all necessary ingredients in general. And, you know, as far as Tezos is concerned, one thing that really stands out is DeFi right now is really risk-laden. And to some extent, everyone is cognizant of the risk they're taking by participating in all these applications when, you know, like sushi, for example, right? Like people jumped in, they knew there was an element of risk. Something bad happened, but most people are philosophical about it. But when it comes to the savings and the hard-earned money of people with very little in their hands, the underlying protocol better be extremely robust, and the applications you build, they have to be really, really, really stable. And you can't just exit scam because, you know, in India, when normal crypto first took off, there were exit scams, there were pyramid schemes, and quickly the government just clamped down. So in order to prevent this from happening, I think it would be really good if projects like USD Tez or Dexter, you know, they were on a very firm foundation, work better than sort of the incumbents. And then that would give a lot of people like Nelly more confidence taking it to the developer.
And also, if I may add something, like looking from afar, the DeFi and the liquidity pools, I feel like, you know, like usually people say that in Africa we don't have like financial inclusion and because traditional banks are not there, right? But my thinking was, then how does the community still manage to thrive? Because I've seen like a lot of people with no formal education being successful businessmen and not even having a bank account, not even maybe managing to kind of read through a contract. And then I dive into, and we have those community saving circles where they basically pull liquidity together. And they have so many sophisticated systems around that. So sometimes people look at it and think it's only a merry-go-round, like everyone puts something in the pot and then someone just wins the pot and then it's all over. But they have so many sophisticated mechanisms that, you know, now I'm set out to really study what have been our customs, what have been our tradition in Africa, in Cameroon and Ivory Coast, to kind of finance outside the system. And if I can get that offline knowledge and then combine it with the technology and my friends at Tezos to see how can we put that into codify that into a smart contracts and the underlying Tezos technology to kind of really give superpowers to this kind of millennial tradition of getting finance, because they have already been doing that for like ages, getting finance outside the system, and it has worked phenomenally. So
yeah,
that's kind of my
I love it. When we talk about these things, so often I explain DeFi or crypto to somebody, and they go like, "Oh my God, this is crazy! This is like a revolutionary thing." I go, "This is exactly what it was before the banks came in and took advantage of everything." Yeah. And these products, like, I mean, you don't even have to look that far. My parents' generation, they moved to this country, but when they got married, their family got together, they all pitched in and bought them a house.
Exactly.
And one of the things they left behind was a paid-for house that they ended up selling to one of their friends. You know, but like, these are things that in most countries, here in the United States, it's further back in multiple generations back, but in most countries, most places of the world, this is only a generation or two ago where these community type of projects or these community type of financing things that they weren't technologically hard. They just had to trust one person, or you know, the grandma would gather everyone and take care of it, right? So I don't think anything is that different now. It's just that we're cutting out the people who were taking the biggest profits from the pie and bringing those profits back to the community. So going back now to Kevin and Tyler, maybe Tyler on the Dexter side, but Kevin too. How are these? How are things going to be different? I guess where I'm going, because I'm comparing it in my head, because I have, you know, I don't really have a choice yet to compare it to anything other than, you know, not using Tezos or using Ethereum or something like that, and that's where we're participating now. What's the biggest differences, I guess, because that's the main thing leading up to this event. Like, why Tezos? Why is it different? How does it solve the problems that need solving?
You know, I usually answer this question. I think it's consistent, especially for DeFi, is that Tezos, given the way that it's composed with OCaml, it's a language made by mathematicians for mathematicians. And many other things that my great esteemed developer colleagues in the room can all attest to about the language, but that it's great for sensitive numbers. Anything dealing with sensitive numbers, that you want to go with Tezos. Fundamentally, that's what it can shine at.
What do you mean by that exactly? I'm not sure I understand.
Formal verification and the ability to have that record of assurance instantaneously without frictions or things that could jam up your insights. That's more secure. It's ultimately safer for people putting their money down, let alone financial institutions. So when we think of financial institutions and what they're looking for as long-term solutions for themselves, that's one thing. That's more my go-to on that regard. But I think some people get offended when I say that in the Tezos community, because it's like, well, it's great for other things too. It's like, yeah. But I think the focus now, and the reason why this is called Tezos and DeFi as a event, is because DeFi tends to start these technological revolutions. I mean, finance does. They take these new applied technologies, which can give an edge for them as financial participants, and then they make use of them. It happened with ticker tape. It happened with the fax, with just the computerization of banking that started in the 50s, really, and so on and so forth with the internet. But and so finance ultimately does bankroll the rest, because we go from finance to business systems and then all the rest. So that would be on a technological level. But also, and I think that really it comes down to everything else, is the on-chain governance. And the fact that on-chain governance keeps us united as an ecosystem is what allows us to keep growing, to resolve discrepancies between ideologies of some people in the community and others on-chain through proposals and through a legislative process, as opposed to somebody just forking and taking a lot of the community with them in a hard fork, and then, that's bad for both sides. Oh, it can spur a lot of very niche innovation, sure, but to what extent are we going to keep doing that? Ultimately, we need to come together at a table. And by the way, a lot of innovation comes from compromise. And so it's okay if we're, taking our time on things, but because in the end, the product is just a million times better. We have a luxury of being able to look and review what's happening on Ethereum and on other protocols, not feel like, we're going to fall behind. No, we're always going to be around. We'll be okay. Let's just watch and wait.
Well, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate and also agree with you. So there is, from my perspective, right, there's been around for a while. You see people talking about different programming languages for the last 20 years or whatever, since I've been aware of what a programming language is. And it's not always the best programming language that maybe gets the most adoption, or maybe there are various programming languages that are good for different things. And then there's interoperability between different languages and products. So like if I go back 10 years or so, at MySpace at the time, people were really like, pissed off at the fact that like the engineers that worked there were pissed off at the fact that they like re-upped a contract with Microsoft and continued to build on .NET and have Microsoft servers and things like that running behind the scenes. And it was because the people who owned the company, it was Fox, and they went like, we want to have a company where we can hop on the phone with somebody who works high up at the company and ask them a question or have them fix something when it's broken, not go into the message boards and be like, yo, my server's busted, who's online? Because that's the difference between open source and enterprise software. And every engineer knew it wasn't as good of a product as some of the other products they wanted to build on, or at least it definitely wasn't as cool, but it was the one that worked for that solution, for that business use case or whatever. And I think that we're probably going to see that in crypto too, right? Like Ethereum is probably not going to be the best, programming language or best platform for every single use case, but it'll probably get used for the foreseeable future by a lot of them until there are some other options and some other reasons. But again, even these billions of dollars in DeFi are a small amount, compared to the trillions of dollars in the global financial landscape. And so, and the end user, the consumers, our parents, our friends and family who will never probably use the crypto, don't really give a crap. So if, Tyler launches Dexter and it provides liquidity for an iPhone app that allows you to invest in some product that but the iPhone app obfuscates all the crypto part, Tyler can provide the infrastructure and the end user will never know that Tezos even exists and doesn't have to. And that's where I think that's where the real evolution of DeFi comes from. So going along that chain, and I'm talking too much, I'd love to get Tyler to weigh in on this topic too, of kind of getting it next level in this stuff.
Yeah, actually the last thing you said is the direction I'd like to take my company in. So that's why we're building both a mobile wallet and a decentralized exchange. And we're putting a lot of emphasis around the user experience on the mobile wallet. And so it's just starting out as a Tezos mobile wallet. But the goal, longer term thinking, how do we get this to mainstream use, is I'd like someone to be able to purchase regular things online, and it's using Tezos in some way, and they aren't even aware maybe. So that's the long-term goal. It could take years.
Well, we're building something, right, that is allowing people to purchase a Ethereum token right now using their US dollars through an app. And to do that, we have to use a licensed bank as the custodian. It's called Prime Trust. It basically is one of the like 3 or 4 banks that basically have almost all the exchange volume in the space. But they're going to use that, and then behind the scenes, a smart contract is going to purchase the crypto or sell the crypto depending on a 1 time a day or twice a day batch kind of transaction. Mostly because we'd like to do it in real time, but because of the fees and things like that, it doesn't make sense. So we're doing it in batches. But in general, we have to like create all of these things to do it. Now, I would much rather use a system where I can do it in real time or not pay the fees or just be. Are you guys doing anything, like next step? So like if you have the iPhone app, or the phone app that allows you to custody or hold your Tezos, will it also hold USD Tez? Will there be like a swap function within that app? Will there be a dApp browser? Because that's where I think we're used to with Ethereum, but isn't necessarily the user experience of somebody who's not in crypto. I'm just trying to understand how the process might work.
Yeah, we're natively building Dexter into the mobile app. So it'll be very easy to use the exchange within the mobile app. And yeah, it will support all tokens on Tezos that follow the Tezos token standard, which is FA 1.2 or FA 2 in the future.
I think also like what we're starting to see, which was unusual even just like a year ago or a couple of years ago, which are these multi-currency wallets, to which they're just not a Tezos wallet or Ethereum wallet, they're just wallets. And now we're seeing the integration of these exchanges and yield mechanisms within the controls to participate within the wallets themselves, that to the user pretty soon, they're not even really necessarily going to know if they're doing something on Ethereum or Tezos. It's just they're moving stuff around. And what's on the back end, like, it matters for us, but for most people, new entrants and everything, it's not going to be a point of exposure they necessarily need to think about or know. But most of the money is in most people. This is the very...
What happens, so I'm thinking of Nelly's use case right now. What if I'm in Cameroon and I get paid using one of the current, wide tokens in Africa, which are, as far as I know, ERC20 tokens, and I want to hold it in my wallet or move it to USD Tez so I could get some Tezos, or I heard that if I move it to USD Tez, I will not pay fees as often when I want to make a swap or do something, right? So that would save me a lot. And so I'd like to move there. So is there, I would love from Nelly, from your side, if you feel like that's a use case, but also Tyler, in the wallet portion of what you're building, do you have plans to be interoperable and hold Ethereum tokens also? Or do you guys, Kevin, Tyler, Vishakh, Nelly, know of any bridges between the two and just create interoperability? Because I feel like there was a big thing recently with Bitcoin and Ethereum with Ren BTC creating a bridge, but it was a horrible experience for me, even though I love Bitcoin and I'm a fan of Ethereum, because it took me 4 or 5 confirmations on Bitcoin till it transferred. It was like an hour-long process to move $100 worth of Bitcoin onto the Ethereum network. So I have a feeling it'll be between Tezos and Ethereum, and then once people get a taste of the better product, hopefully there'll be some movement to it, right?
Yeah, so slightly different perspective, right? So our company also makes a leading Tezos wallet. We also have a mobile wallet, and as Kevin mentioned, there's a lot of multi-currency wallets also, right? So to be honest, and Tyler's perspective might be different because he's also running an exchange, but to be honest, most of the time, most people, they're just happy with a ledger, right? Or using some multi-chain solution. The reason why they would come to our wallet, not making a statement on behalf of Tyler, but to our wallet, is for specialized Tezos functionality. Because if you just want to hold tokens, you just want to hold some Tez, why take on the friction of installing yet another piece of software, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So what we're betting on is there's going to be specialized functionality within Tezos for projects like Kevin's. They're going to be really like nitty-gritty governance and other fine-grained functionality that these multi-currency generic wallets are not going to be able to offer. And for that, if you want to be truly involved in an ecosystem, like dig deep into the trenches and duke it out with the rest of the community, then you use a Tezos-oriented wallet, which shall be really specialized. Also, I want to go back to an earlier point you made. I both strongly agree and I strongly disagree. So yeah, I mean, JavaScript is very dominant today. Everybody loves it. A lot of people love it. Some of us don't, some of us hate it, but whatever, it's very successful. And that's a great point. However, nobody in the aerospace industry or the derivative finance industry is ever going to build their trading engine or their, like their flight controls in JavaScript.
But they might build the front end interface when you're trading on Schwab or whatever using it. But you're right.
Well, that's also a little bit bizarre, right? Just because of the way network effects work. Maybe now on Wall Street they have a few JavaScript UIs, but I spent about a decade working on Wall Street, in Wall Street companies. I saw a bunch of derivatives trading systems up front, and there's a big difference between a platform that allows for quick iteration, quick innovation, literally like YAM, set something up, run a sort of performance art piece / financial application, which is really cool, by the way, that lasts 72 hours and so on. Versus, there's this other bit of finance that we should not forget about, where people are issuing 100-year bonds, right? Like, there are certain countries, especially in response to COVID, that took out 100-year bonds. And the other thing is, again, if you make a bad technology choice, no matter how cool your idea is, it's gonna bite everyone, and it's gonna put a chill in the ecosystem. So the DAO, I think a lot of us have forgotten, even though it's only been 3 years, the DAO created such a sort of scare, and it brought a lot of notoriety to the ecosystem, right, to the wider crypto ecosystem. So I think it's one thing for random degens to lose their money and, the New York Times to do a story about it, which is, it's another to have, heart-rending stories of pictures of people who are ruined, who have nothing already, and they took the money from their pillow, and then, they lost even that. And then the last thing is bridging between Tezos and other cryptocurrencies. Nelly will have her opinion as well, but I think the internet's been a big leveler. I've seen people in India, for example, who are illiterate, right? But because they have a mobile phone, and for the first time they can talk to each other, it's just kind of like learn to be like internet literate. And it's going to be the same, right? Like, if a tool more or less works for entrepreneurial, experimental people in the United States or in France or whatever, then in Cameroon or other countries like that, smart people are going to figure it out, and they're going to be as adept as using these bridges, atomic swaps, what have you.
Yeah, and
DEXs and so on.
if I may add, I completely agree with you, Vishakh. For me, the DAO and what happened at the beginning of Polkadot was kind of a big no-no when it comes to Ethereum as a platform. I would want to tokenize kind of the assets of people in Africa, or I need something that is really more secure than that. When also we talk about user experience here, we need to think about which users. When I started building Ejara, I decided to build as a non-custodial wallet first, even if they're offering Bitcoin and Tezos. So for now, it's not even hierarchical deterministic. So people have to say basically the 24 mnemonic words for Tezos and 12 words for Bitcoin. And everybody told me, like, especially in Europe and the US, why are you doing that? Customers don't care. Look how they are doing. They just go on Coinbase and Binance. They don't care if they don't own their keys. But the experience I've been having here in Africa is completely different. People love that feature because, those are the people that use cash for 90% of their transaction. So they basically like to be the owner of their funds. So when I tell them, I'm never going to be able to touch your funds, you are responsible, that's something that is reassuring for them. And when I tell that to my friends in Europe, they are scared because they are used to have a legacy system, the banks that are doing that, right? So this user experience is maybe really different. Like, so when you are building a wallet in Africa, if you go from the premise, from the hypothesis that you validated abroad, you might be kind of disappointed when you come here and say, oh, Africa is not ready for blockchain. No, Africa is ready. So this is one thing I was really surprised about, like the way people that are normally illiterate can embrace that kind of not your keys, not your font, not a Bitcoin. The second thing is when Vishakh mentioned the illiterate being like digitally literate. I've been here for 1 week now, and I've talked to CEOs of insurance company and banks. Those are people that are 70 years old and plus, right? And they have built their own banks, they have built their own insurance company. To be honest, I've never been so amazed in kind of Europe because they talk to me about blockchain. They really see how it can give power to what they have been doing for so long. They are asking me questions. How can I use it? I've had that idea for 20 years now. Do you think that with your blockchain, you can find something? And yes, of course, it shows me that they are coming to truly understand what it's about, because they are linking it to a special use case. And that makes them dive in the technology through the prism of the use case. And it makes them really more aware, like really more kind of knowledgeable about this ecosystem that the likes, I mean, those people that look alike that I've met in Europe. I've been having like many trouble convincing like 40-year-old plus kind of business owners in Europe that this is the vision of the new world, and they're like, oh yeah, but banks are doing fine, and you know, you have sound currencies, and they don't want to hear about it. But here we don't have any legacy system. You have to build one, and that's why it's really exciting. Yeah.
I think that there's an opportunity when those legacy systems don't exist to leapfrog innovations, right? Like some of the developing world got cell phones and things like that faster and wider adopted because they didn't have the infrastructure for regular phones, and they ended up leapfrogging some of the rest of the world who were slow to create those innovations. So it makes a lot of sense it could happen here, and I hope it does. I think, Kevin, you were about to chime in, probably on the interoperability thing. I still want the bridge. I want the bridge from Nelly's ERC20 currency to the Tezos world, so that you give everyone the taste.
You can. I mean, it's just about creating the library and capacity for all that. I think over time we'll have a lot more tools, but the idea is that things are kind of they escalate. People see the adoption somewhere and they go, oh, that's a trend, I'm going to participate, and then they become part of a bigger trend, and then so you have more participants, more developers, and then more assistance on that front. So yeah, we'll start to see. I don't think like a quick one-click button, one-size-fits-all solution to, I think, every single application on Ethereum.
I can. You could do something very simply. Well, one, how it works right now, if I understood the minter for USD Tez, you know, you have to go through a special process. It's not US based for the most part, right? But the collateral for the USD Tez is USDC held by a licensed custodian.
Yeah.
So you're going from USDC to USD Tez. Let's say I'm going to ignore that completely, but could I create a smart contract on Ethereum or on Tezos, or maybe a completely centralized solution using a licensed bank myself too, where I accept USDC and I give and I hold it, so there's 1-to-1 USDC to give USD Tez. If that's the case, I could use a service like one of our portfolio companies, Total, which is a decentralized routing engine that will route any ERC20 token to any other ERC20 token and find the decentralized exchange and liquidity that will give the best prices. And it'll even break it up. If I have, you know, if I need over $1,000, maybe it'll give half of it to Uniswap and half of it to a different exchange. But at the end of the day, I can say, give me from one ERC20 token to USDC. So that would mean I should be able to talk about Legos, money Legos, right? I'm in my son's room, sorry. I told some of you this before we got on. So you go talk about money Legos. Here's the money Lego, any ERC20 token to USDC, and there's the bridge. We need USDC to Tezos so that I could play around on Dexter, realize that the fees are minuscule and non-existent compared to Ethereum, and then go, well, you know what, I'm going to spend a little more time in this Tezos Ethereum space as it matures, or at least a certain portion of my portfolio, or just knowing when the next thing gets launched on Tezos, it's not a hindrance. Like, what scares me when some new project launches, like, oh crap, so I've got to like figure out how to connect my MetaMask wallet to somewhere, and how am I going to take my money out of one system? Like, does that mean I have to put it into like Coinbase so I can move it to my bank account, from my bank account to some other thing? Or like, because essentially the only way you work on different exchanges right now is going through some kind of centralized exchange. I want a world where I only work on decentralized exchange.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's always like, I think of people at certain stages of their crypto lifestyle, like they're the Coinbase people that just have their money there, or on Robinhood or something. In Robinhood, you're really very entry level point. You can't really do anything with it. But then there are the people who get the MetaMask wallet, and then they're, maybe they have some tokens and they get the whole token concept. And then there are people who take that, interact with it on a Uniswap or a Compound or something. But so for us in the Tezos space, introducing things like Dexter and the Beacon wallet extension and all of these wallets you can interact now that facilitate these token standards, it's like we can say to those people, it's a subset of those people, but I mean, those are always the first that are going to adopt it. It's like, hey, you know how you interact with MetaMask, right? Through Uniswap and everything. Like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, it's like that. Oh, well, that's the simplest way of explaining it. And it took 2 seconds.
Yeah, but so, I got a Thanos wallet. I hold my $1 in USD Tez in it. I'm stoked to do that. And I want to hold more USD Tez. Right. But Vishakh is now sideways. I love it.
He's doing this on purpose.
I just can't touch it.
I feel like he's messing with
I think I'm wanted.
And his hair is blonde, so I feel like I'm watching like a No Doubt video.
Well, yeah, I am indeed the bass guitarist from No Doubt. I don't know what's going on. I'm just the thing just reloaded, and now I'm like at a 90-degree angle.
So where I was going to is I feel the way Vishakh looks when I try to navigate between a Thanos wallet and a MetaMask wallet. And what I want is one wallet that can hold both. A simple bridge between the two so that it's more seamless.
It's all about removing the friction points. And I think every cycle, whatever you want to call that, whether it's like your month development plan or your season or what your plan is for the year, you want to get people like everything that's just going to take down those barriers, because that's a bigger market, and that's more participants, and that drives more activity and more stuff to do. But yeah, so in the beginning, I think just like with Tezos baking, like now we finally have like a one-click kind of install a Mac solution for. I know a lot of people are going to start baking now just because that film release came out last week. But in the beginning, I thought, it's kind of good to have a bit of technical friction there, because that means you really want it. And so it kind of keeps away the drive-by.
But it also can drive away maybe engineers who want to build something on it for other people and go like, oh, it's hard to find community that could help me, or I don't know. But I think you're absolutely right.
A lot of exposed pipes right now. It's like it's got that look. So but for a lot of people that's okay. They like that. It's like an advantage. If you look at Curve.fi. I mean, Curve, they hit 300 million something volume the other day, and with Binance only at 3 billion, they're catching up. But look at it; it looks like some terminal from like a Levy's movie.
That's because their users are people using MetaMask who clearly don't care what the best user experience is, and it's people who are chasing something that sort of transcends user experience, which is selfishness and money. They're just trying to make as much money as humanly possible. People will jump through some crazy ass hoops.
Or a utilitarianist ideology that's like, forget about the frills.
No, because it does have enough style to where it actually makes it more confusing to use than if it was just text on a white screen. It's actually more confusing than it has to be.
Well, because of Curve Finance. You got to start down the text on the screen.
Actually, we go into the chat, but when I talked to Adele earlier, he brought up Curve as something that I love, and I didn't realize I loved it, but apparently I've talked about it enough to where people think I love it. So I've participated, I won't lie, and it's fun, not significantly, because I feel like the whole thing's an experiment, but that's okay. But I want to jump into the QA really quick, because we should have a few minutes of QA before we jump into the networking mode. And I knew there was a few questions I think there's one that I for sure want to get to Tyler, and one I for sure want to get to Nelly before we go. Tyler, a few people asked about the liquidity pools on Dexter. One of the questions literally says, can we hear more from Dexter about the liquidity pools on Dexter? So, or from Tyler. So can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because I know you're very close to launch, right? I think I saw something in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it will be this month for sure.
That's exciting. Congrats. We gotta hear the report back when you launch. But tell us.
We'll do. Yeah, I'll have an AMA on Reddit leading up to launch. But yeah, I'll talk a little more about the liquidity pools right now. So the important thing is that if you're providing liquidity to Dexter, that your funds will be delegated to a baker, and you will get rewards from that baker. No one would provide.
Will you get rewards from the baker and for providing liquidity in the pool,
yes.
like on the Ah,
yes. Yeah, cool. Nice. Double yield. Yeah.
Hey, is that the first yield farming move on Tezos?
Already. It's already coming. Okay.
Adam,
yeah, so
we can't really hear you. It looked like you were trying to ask a quick question.
Okay, so yes, you'll get both baking rewards and liquidity fees, which come from the traders that are trading on Dexter. You'll get 0.3% of that, same as Uniswap. So how does that work? It's actually an open problem that how do you decide where those pools are delegated? So there's not we didn't find a way to do it in a decentralized manner at this point. So we're going to partner with and select bakers that are some of the best in the community, like that have been around from the beginning and that have shown that they're really reliable. And so we'll select bakers for each pool. We hope to eventually decentralize that process, maybe through a DAO, or there are some different ideas on how to do that. But Dexter version 1 will just be partnering with bakers to make sure that the liquidity pools get share in the rewards.
And Tyler, really quick, can you guys hear me now? Okay,
yes.
For people who aren't familiar, because we have audience members of different levels of expertise, can you just quickly explain what a baker is?
Yeah, a baker is they help secure and validate the network in a proof. So it takes on the role of what a miner would do in proof of work. A baker on Tezos bakes blocks, helps validate. They have to put up a bond, and then you can also anyone else who doesn't want to run a full baker themselves could delegate to a baker. So yeah, they help with the consensus mechanism.
Perfect. Thank you.
And one quick follow-up to that on the liquidity pools. Somebody asked, will you be able to fund the liquidity pools from within the mobile wallet?
Not in the next month or two, but probably 2 or 3 months from now, we'll be able to do that. Starting upon launch, right now, upon launch, you'll be able to do it from the website. You'll be able to trade and exchange from the mobile wallet, and eventually provide liquidity from the mobile wallet in a few months.
Awesome, very, very cool. And there was a specific question here about trying to find it again. Tezos traction. How is Tezos planning to gain traction in Africa? So I think Nelly, you did touch on this before, but do you have any specifics? And are there thinking about the Tezos Foundation and the various groups within the Tezos community? Are you getting any buy-in outside of you yourself, single-handedly going back home and trying to do that? Because I know you've only been back for like a week, you said. But is there any other help within the community to do that? And is there anything that everyone else here listening can help with as well?
Yes, so we organized, it was a week ago, right, Vishakh? It was a year ago, like in July 2019, the first kind of Tezos event in Africa. And it was kind of a bet for me because I think the idea came up like on May 30th last year. And I just tweeted about it. And then Vishakh and Mike reached out, even Kevin also reached out. And they told me, oh, how can we help? And I was like, okay, I'm getting there. This community is awesome. I knew it was. And then when we set up like the first video call and I told Vishakh, oh, I'm going on vacation in Cameroon in July. I want to do it like in 6 weeks. They were like, no way. I was like, wait, you will see. And not only we managed to do that event, but we even managed to have Mike flew in to Cameroon, to Douala. And it was like a huge success. Like 80 people attended. Like think about all the meetups we organized in the US, in Europe. You have like barely 15 people, 20 people, and sometimes they like ball out of their mind. And at that event, like more than 80 kids. I mean, not only kids, like all age ranges came in, and they had computers, and they were there to learn, and they were to participate. We had like youth exposure from TV networks, from radio networks. It was really overwhelming. And from there on, we started thinking, oh, we might be onto something. And then so I started organizing some meetups in other cities in Africa. Since like 3 months ago, we set up like a proper foundation. So we already have like 6 chapters, so 6 countries, like running like on their own, like Ghana, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Benin, Senegal, and they are organizing their own events. They are, they are entertaining their own community. So in Africa, you have like Tezos Ghana, like that has a Telegram group, a YouTube channel, like they do whatever they want because in Tezos, we really value decentralization. So although I'm kind of the lead of Tezos West Africa, I'm basically just there to make sure that nobody does like things from scratch when we can learn from another chapter, and that's it. And I mean, after that, they have like total autonomy to do whatever they have.
I think that's a huge problem in all sort of decentralized communities.
Alon, I lost you.
We'll come back.
Okay.
I think we lost him. Go ahead.
I just want to say Nelly was being really modest because last year, after we made that outreach, thanks to Nelly, and we helped train up some developers in Cameroon. They were immediately super productive. So not only did they pick up the skills really quickly, but then after that we had a hackathon. There were 2 teams from Cameroon, and they basically won the hackathon. And after that, they also won some other prizes. They were able to build. During one hackathon, they were able to build a sort of Cameroon or West Africa targeted Tezos wallet really quickly, and then they iterated on it. And the amount of output that's coming out is really impressive. So I think this speaks volumes, right? It's so much better than any specific project, or which are all because and it shows that it combines the best aspects of Tezos. So it's community driven, and obviously the sort of the francophone nature of it also helps. But yeah, it's grounds up, and people there are building right now, which is the best you can hope for.
Awesome. That's awesome, guys. I think we're reaching towards the end. Kevin, do you want to add any last words, or Tyler?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
For one thing, I think yeah. So like the fact that we can have these communities in Africa, it's not something you can see from every blockchain project, and it just emphasizes how we are a global, united community, and that should be looking that our strength is in that diversity, and we should expand that and be all over the world. Whereas I think some projects, their instinct is to go to like the fashion centers of like Paris, London, New York, and then it's like, okay, yeah, and then they'll call it a day. It's like, but no, spreading it out is great. The other thing is, I've been watching to cap off the DeFi talk and everything, I've been watching, and what Tezos needs to keep in mind about global interests, the YAM migration from YAM v1 to YAM v2, they had some period of a few days where you're able to migrate your old YAM tokens to the new ones. And then they announced a great success after that period was over, that 98.5% were migrated. And then there's a cognitive bias in which you do commit that kind of action, so then you don't really care for those who didn't do what you just did. So there was a lot of those that were able to get the new tokens and then vote said, let's not make any kind of extension or exception for those who did not migrate. That was their fault. They didn't do it. We did it, so that's that. But then there was a whole other conversation of people coming from Africa, from nations that are not always considered by the Western nations in which these protocols historically have been mostly built, to say, hey man, I can't, sometimes the power goes out where I live.
Yeah.
And that's, and to us, it's like, oh, come on, the power, like it's a dog ate my homework excuse. Like, no, that's a real thing and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's like, oh, well, maybe our one size fits all solution of just a few-day migration window, and whoever didn't do it was either just like negligent or like we have to just assume that. We might get too cocky with the idea of, oh, because it's internet, because it's blockchain, it's equal for everybody already. And that's going to keep our guard down, and we're going to forget things like this, and that's not right. And we'll be, antithetical towards the ideals that we purport. So that's something that's why that's one of the things I like to watch about these systems, to see how the fallout is, so we can reflect and do a better job. And not to say they didn't do a great job in the end, but that's part of it. That's part of the experimentation process. You learn, you watch, and then you get better. So we'll try to get it right. We'll try to do better than past models.
Fun fact, the latest technical issue, I specifically cannot hear Adam. I can hear everybody else, but not Adam.
How's that? Can you guys hear me now? Sorry,
I have no idea. I know you're talking, but I have no idea what you're saying.
No, we can hear you, Adam.
Wow.
So bizarre.
The parents are gone. The kids are out.
Yeah.
Community takeover.
Yeah. No, we can talk.
Tezos takeover complete.
Exactly.
It was really a great thing to mention, because sometimes you can even have power and you don't have data access. I mean, it's kind of problem that you will encounter only when you are here and you are building from here. And then even I at Ejara, sometimes I have my developers, like they cannot work for like the whole day, and they can only work from like midnight to 6 a.m. And so like, when I heard like, oh, it's gonna work remote, it's gonna flexible, yeah, but I'm being flexible by design because I don't have any choice, If somehow like the power just comes from midnight to 6 a.m., that's kind of the open hours of the company, right? And if it doesn't, okay, we just.
Yeah, it's almost like a soft tax on those that don't have the resources that some of us get to take for granted. If something goes wrong, if my power goes out or my internet gets cut out or whatever, I'll just go down to the nearest Starbucks or something, operate from there. Or, there are many contingency plans I could take if a lot is on the line. But there are many parts of the world where, no, we don't have that luxury. And if we're going to be fair, we have to be fair. Just because we don't see it, it's not part of our experience, doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking out for it. Otherwise, we fall to all these, traps and sociology, tyranny of the majority, and all of that. We can't expect governance to be fair and equal if everyone isn't included who's supposed to be at that table. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Cool.
I think the issue was just with me, but now I can hear you.
Now you've passed the bad luck to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have.
at least my screen isn't crooked. But I think that's a good place to leave off, guys. Thank you so much. I apologize for the technical difficulties with Remo. You guys powered through a great conversation about Tezos and DeFi. Just before we move on to the networking session, Kevin, can you tell us where we can find you? We'll move on to Nelly, Tyler, and end off with Vishakh. I want to make sure I don't butcher the name. Is that how I say it? Is that correct?
No, that's good.
Perfect.
Very good.
Perfect. Kevin, go
9.7.
ahead.
So you can find me on Twitter at Mehrabi. You could also go to the USD Tez. It's at USD Tez, USDTZ, USDTZ.com. And from there, you can probably find a lot of other avenues on social media to find everything else. But feel free to follow, reach out, try to get to the DMs as best as I can. Perfect.
Nelly?
So Twitter too, so Tezos in Africa handle, or my personal one, ChatoueDiop. So usually I'm underhanded because I have lots of friends on Twitter. Like my husband say, okay, you have your Twitter best friend. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of the virtual world we are living in. So yeah, so you're gonna find me there like often.
Perfect. Thank you, Nelly. Tyler?
camlCase Tech on Twitter or camlCase.io for our website.
And Vishakh?
So Cryptonomic, you can find at cryptonomic.tech. And then you can follow me on Twitter at my name, which I assume that everyone can see.
Perfect. Perfect. Guys, thank you so much. What a great conversation. Now, before I end all of this, I want to let, for those who are joining us for the first time on Blockchain and Booze, we're going to switch into the networking session and speakers. I encourage you guys to stay if you're able to, depending on what time zones you're in. Basically, I'm going to end presentation mode, and everyone that's in this conversation, as well as everyone that's watching, is going to distribute into these colorful tables where we'll all be able to bounce from chair to chair and meet people from all over the world. But to do so, you got to have your mics on and your cameras on. So I'm going to end presentation mode in about 3 seconds. So be sure to have your mics and your cameras on, and you'll be all set. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.